How many big artists are there? Artists of scale?
I think artists of scale, they're probably about, I mean, we always talk about the big four, big five. Those are the massive artists already. Then you've got the next sort of, the top 10, so to speak. So if I were to rank them without being sort of biased to anybody, I think in terms of power, the single biggest artist is D'banj. Just as a solo artist who has really, really understood the power of commercial value and how to drive his brand. He's been the most savvy commercially. He had a very strong team. That team was separated. So you have Jazzy's on one side, D'banj is on one side. But D'banj has aggressively gone international. You've got Two-Face, who to me is the most loved Nigerian artist. Not always being the most commercially savvy, but always the most loved. Always has enormous traction with his music. You have P-Square, who, you know, if you look at the numbers in digital space, nobody touches P-Square. P-Square, the guys that shut down stadiums across this continent and have been known to do it for at least 4 or 5 years. Enormous, you know, and that typically has been the big three. Then Wizid, who was recently signed by Akon's Konvict, developed by a local label called EME, and an artist called Banky W with his partner Shegun Demurin. Wizid is just massive. I mean, Wizid might well be, who knows, but Wizid is signed by Konvict, which is a Universal sub-label, and I'll come to that later. But Wizid and D'banj has already had enormous success with the Oliver Twist single. As you know, in the UK, the playlisting for the BBC, I mean, I was hearing some outrageous numbers, bigger than a lot of records released in the last 10 years. And he has a lot of hot music coming. The issue with D'banj is still going to be how he manipulates or works his relationship with Kanye West and good music. And everybody's watching to see how these things play out. But in Nigeria, these are the big five. Then you have the NATO C, who's associated with us, MI, who's enormous. There's a guy called Flavor, who is as big as anybody in Africa right now. It's still building in Nigeria. You know, and there's a bunch of other artists. You know, there's probably an elite sort of 20-25, but frankly in Nigeria, there's another couple of hundred. At any point in time, any guy, especially in the digital age, might just have that one big blowout record. And because of the way things work now, one big record, one video, that could make you the hottest.
Happens very quickly.
There's a kid called Davido, who's a little teenager. You know, we've got a boy band called LOS, who we have huge hopes for because they're 17 to 19, they're the demographic, they're getting a lot of traction in their generation. And once they go over the top, they're almost unstoppable. You know how those movements go. So I think Nigeria's getting to a new phase. There's a new sound coming, very Fuji influence. And Fuji's kind of like the hip hop of Lagos from the streets. So it's up tempo, which sort of fits into the electronic dance music sound that's going around the world into North America at the moment. So I think we're into some very interesting times. And you know, with music, it's flux. There's no guarantees. Because you're number one today, doesn't mean that next year you'll still be on top. Very few artists have that longevity. I mean, P-Square have had it, Two-Face has had it, D'banj has had it, and that is why, you know, these guys are the top three. Jazzy will remain always relevant as a producer and creator of talent. So there's a strong, healthy group of elite artists. There's a lot of copycat. I always get people coming to me, oh, how can I do that? I said, look, there's already a D'banj. You can't be D'banj. There's already a NATO C on MI. You can't be any of those guys. You've got to build your own identity.
So what are the prospects internationally for people like P-Square and
P-Square and the rest of it? Well, it's going to be very interesting. I think for a lot of the guys, it depends on the kind of deal they sign. I think a lot of the elite Nigerian artists have generated enough traction and enough money. They don't need to be desperate in what they sign. They need to be careful about the terms of the deals. Because I think for the Nigerian artists, for the P-Squares, the D'banj's, even for NATO C, who, I mean, we're talking to people for him, I'm sure MI, you know, guys who we know have enormous audiences in multiple countries. The key issue is going to be, what is the major really doing for us? You know? How are you delivering us? Are you putting us onto the festivals?
How much are they promoting?
Exactly. Are you putting us onto the festivals? Are you backing this thing with promotional dollar? Because if it's to make a video and make the music, we do that already. So we come ready-made, so to speak. We have the diaspora audience, right? And that music is already connecting to people who are not diaspora. The English, the Jamaicans, the Puerto Ricans, the Black Americans. It's already filtrating in without any dollar push. So the issue is, for me, if the majors have been intelligent, is how they can leverage off that and push and build a brand. You see the BBC has created an Afrobeats brand and turned the music, referential to Fela Kuti, but it's a new generation. And I think that's quite clever because many of us have been sitting here for 5 years trying to find a
word.
Yeah, you're like, I used to say Bedu, and I thought that was it's too hard for an European to pronounce, but I think, get over it. They've turned it, utilized it. The BBC's power is enormous compared to a Storm or an EME or any one of the labels here. We don't have those marketing budgets. So I think it's about how they infiltrate. We're very interested to see how Universal work P Square. They haven't done anything yet. As far as I'm concerned, the Rick Ross collaboration was done by P Square prior to the Universal deal. What we want to see now is, I know P Square have recorded with Usher, for example. I know they're talking to Rihanna. But it's not about that. It's about how will it get released? Is it going to be on mainstream platforms in the States, in Northern Europe?
Is it going to be a breakout music rather than a genre music?
Are you going to enable this thing? Because we're not interested in being world music. I don't want to be on the back shelf in the third corner.
The 2% audience.
No, we want to be front and center. We think our music is global urban music that can connect and rock festivals, clubs, bars. It's already doing it, but you need an advocate. So that's what we're looking at.
Obi, thanks for talking to me today.
No, nice one. I got everything in.
Yes.